Okay, so it's 5:30. I declare this meeting open. I welcome everyone present and all those viewing online. Kaya Wanju, Mali Budja, hello and welcome to Swan Country. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet tonight, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging as we grow our communities together. Item 2, the disclaimer. The City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during this meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any other person or body should rely upon that discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval or the conditions which relate to it or the refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. The recording will also be archived and made available on the Council's website after the meeting. If you choose to participate in the meeting during public question or public statement time, it is assumed your consent is given for the audio to be recorded. Please keep your comments respectful to the Council and other members of the community. Visual images of the public will not be captured. Conditions of entry: no electronic, visual or audio recording or transmitting device or instrument is permitted to be used. A person who breaches this provision of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 will be required to immediately leave the premises. Item 3, attendance and apologies. As you'll note, the Mayor is currently not here. He's running late at another event and he'll take over this meeting once he arrives. Councillor Scanlon's a late apology as well. Item 4, declarations of financial and proximity interests or interests affecting impartiality. Mr CEO.
Mr Mayor, we have a number already listed who were listed the other night, Mr Mayor, at the agenda forum. I've also received one from Councillor Congleton in relation to C1.4, that's the revocation motion on Paradise Keys. He's declared a proximity interest as he owns lands next to the proposed site. I've also received one from Mark Bishop and myself. This is the same, Mr Mayor, in that the item 9.1, that's the recruitment of the CEO. I've declared an interest as I'm currently the CEO. Mr Bishop's declared a financial interest as well because he applied for the position, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any others, councillors, staff? Councillor Jones, you have a question?
Yes. Do I need to declare an impartiality interest on the Walcott trees, as I found out on Monday night that I actually teach the boys in the choir of one of the people who presented? He's not an owner, he just presented at the as a deputation.
Yes. Fill it in.
Yes, it'd be advisable to do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones, if you can fill that form out and hand it up when you're ready, please.
Thank you.
So it's Councillor Jones, and that'll be item
5.2.
5.2, thank you.
Moving on to item 5, public question times. 5.1, questions to notice which were taken on notice. There are 4 questions from Mr Bob Ellsbury. They're listed in your report. Miss Naomi Jenkins had 3 questions. Those answers have been provided. Mr Conno Oferio.
Karen Mowat. Karen Mowat down the bottom of the page, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have that highlighted. Yep. Miss Karen Mowat had 3 questions and those have been answered. Mr Conno Oferio had 4 questions and those answers have also been provided. Which takes us to item 5.2, questions relating to reports contained in the agenda and questions of which due notice has been given. There is one there from Mr Baku. You've seen the answer, Mr Baku. Thank you. Section 5.2.2, questions without notice, and the following members of the public have registered to ask question. It's in regards to item C 1.4. It's the revocation proposed aged care development at Paradise Keys, Balladura, the sale and development agreement with Southern Cross. Councillor Congleton, you've declared a financial interest. Mr Baku, I can ask you to come forward and ask your questions, please, if you just put the speak button on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, my questions are about the revocation motion, agenda item C1.4. Firstly, some 20 weeks have passed since the 3rd of June resolution. So I'm interested, what is the reason for not having commenced action to implement parts 3 to 6 in that long period?
Mr Vanderlyn.
Sorry, Mr Deputy Mayor, since then, as per the report, recommendations 1 and 2 have been enacted on. On recommendation 3, the subdivision, there were quotations received from consultants or surveyors to do that work, but prior to appointing those surveyors, we were made aware of this motion, and we didn't go ahead with the surveying for that reason.
Is that appropriate when a motion has been, when a resolution has been made, that the staff decides not to proceed with it?
No, they didn't decide not to proceed, Mr Baku. It was just a process we had to go through. We had to appoint consultants to do the surveying to get it done, and it was in that process that the revocation motion wasn't received, so it was quite proper. We had to stop. So we haven't implemented it, so therefore that's why the revocation motion came in.
Okay. That's been in 20 weeks, you didn't get far. Council resolved at its 17th of February special meeting to recognise the concerns about the community's lack of trust in the city's and council's development approval processes, and also about building heights, scale and style that were conveyed by the Element report on consultation on the Southern Cross proposal. So my question is, will Council ensure, as it proceeds with its endeavours to achieve a quality aged care development Paradise Keys, that important community feedback is acknowledged and acted on, so that a repeat of the unhappy Southern Cross experience does not occur? And if so, how will it do that?
My initial response is yes, Mr Baku, but I can't predetermine the outcome of the revocation motion tonight, so I can't take it any further than that. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, it's not really to do with the revocation motion. But anyway, yeah, irrespective of whether the revocation motion is successful, and I for one hope it isn't, as the southern site offers so much potential for new and innovative recreational possibilities as Council decided in June, will the city ensure that, unlike the previous EOI, that the EOI documentation this time contains clear guidelines for proponents on acceptable building heights, scale and form that will respect the prevailing style and nature of the surrounding residential neighbourhood?
Well, that'll be a future decision of Council to make, and I can't answer with 100% certainty, Mr Baku.
Okay, I hope you just keep it in mind. If the revocation motion does succeed, is there any reason not to adopt the officer's recommendation to remove the area of lot 501 impacted by the 80-metre buffer by just subdividing it off from the land to be made available for sale? In other words, make it part of the motion.
Mr CEO?
As far as I'm aware, that would be the case, yes.
Very good. My last question. The proposed new motion, if the revocation motion succeeds, doesn't include Part 5 of the 3rd of June resolution regarding gaining consent under Section 18 of the Aboriginal Heritage Act prior to going to the market with an EOI process. So I'm not sure, if prior consent is not sought, will prospective proponents be made aware via the EOI that any development will require that consent?
That will need approval if this subdivision is applied for.
No, that's about development, yeah. That the development will require that. Yeah. And proponents will be made aware of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Baku. Next questions are from Ms Viola Maripodi.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say to the City of Swan, you are to be commended for deciding in June to rezone the southern portion of Lot 501 from special use back to local recreation, the way it was originally zoned in the past. My questions tonight will be directed to Councillor McNamara. Councillor, you, on the other hand, oppose this recreational zoning. Many reasons you list focus on financial gain. So my question is, 1, is money justification for developing land which is both an Aboriginal heritage site and a conservation category wetland?
Thank you.
What was that?
Councillor McNamara will take the question on notice and provide a response in due course.
Thank you. My second question is, will you be held personally accountable for the negative impact of deep excavation on these wetlands if high-density development of an aged care occurs? If not, who will?
Did you hear the question, Councillor McNamara?
Unfortunately, Mr Deputy Mayor, I did not.
Would you like me to repeat it?
If you could repeat it, or if you've got them all in writing
I'd like to repeat
after
it.
the meeting, if you could.
I'd like to repeat it, thank you.
Yes, thank you. If you could repeat it, because Councillor McNamara didn't hear it, and that was partly my fault, because I was asking him to turn his microphone on so everyone could hear his response.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
be happy to repeat.
Thank you.
Will you be held personally accountable for the negative impact of deep excavation on these wetlands if high-density development of an aged care occurs? If not, who will?
I will take that question on notice, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Your
Thank
next
you.
question.
My third one is, your last reason for tonight's revocation states, and last but not least, the ageing community have been hanging out for this facility for almost 2 decades. End of quote. Over the last 20 years, other aged care facilities have been built within a radius of 10 kilometres from Paradise Keys. As Balladura lays on the border of the City of Swan, your research into the planning of adjoining councils is expected by the public. Councillor McNamara, are you aware that yet another aged care, a 60 million facility, has just been completed now in 2020, and it's only 2.5 kilometres away from Paradise Keys?
I will also take that question on notice, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. The next person listed to ask questions is Mr Ron Carey, President of the City of Swan Community Care Services. It's on item 3.6. Mr Carey, this is a confidential item, so if you ask a question which goes into confidentiality, I'm just going to take it on notice. General questions we might be able to... General questions we can answer, and we'll just wait for Councillor Congleton to return to the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Mr Carey. If you could ask your question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before I ask my question, I would appreciate just a couple of perhaps 30, 40 seconds, a minute, to remind people of the background to the Elvire Chalets situation. I want to remind everyone, not that you probably need it, especially the councillors, that a research commissioned by the City of Swan in 2015 clearly showed that 1,050 new residential aged care places will be required in the City of Swan alone by the year 2036. The City of Swan is well placed to help reduce or reduce that demand because they have ownership of a site that has been found to be reasonably suitable for an aged care facility. And that site is known as Elvire Chalets.
If I could get you to ask your question now. Thanks, Mr Carey. I think you've put it in context.
When will the City of Swan move to call for expressions of interest from aged care providers and developers to invest in this site so that the redevelopment can commence and we can then have this place built to increase the number of residential aged care places in the City of Swan?
Thank you. Mr Bishop. Mr Vanderlyn.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the city is ready to go out on for expression of interest at this stage. The purpose of tonight's report to Council is to clarify certain options in relation to direction for build form objectives for the site, and the outcome of that report itself will determine when we will actually start to commence the expression of interest.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members in the gallery in relation to items on the agenda? Being nil, we'll move on to 5.3, questions of which notice has been given. There were 5 questions from Mr Bob Ellsbury and they have been answered. There were 2 questions from Mr Carlos Picardo. One's been answered, one's been taken on notice. There were 5 questions from Ms Naomi Jenkins. One has been taken on notice, the others have been answered. Ms Karen Mowat asked 6 questions and they have been answered. Uh, 5.3.2, questions without notice. Are there any questions from the gallery without notice? Being none, we'll move to item 6, public statement time. I have 7 people registered to make a public statement. Public statements are limited to 2 minutes each, and the first person making a public statement is Miss Claire Holberton. Miss Holberton, if you can come to the podium, please. Once you commence, I'll start my time and you'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'm here today to raise awareness and plead to immediately and significantly reduce and eventually cease the use of glyphosate. Yes, that controversial chemical called Roundup. I'm extremely concerned of the increased and widespread use of this chemical, especially in playgrounds and waterways, with minimum signage and inadequate notification. It may be a very economically viable option, however it is not an environmental one. I have lived in the Swan Valley on and off most of my life and have noticed that wildlife numbers have dramatically decreased, for example birds, bees and insects, and increase in pests in the area as a result. Soil quality has significantly declined over the years due to clearing of the land for infrastructure, highways and roads in the recent years, and inadequate attention paid to regeneration of the soils. Glyphosate is one of the biggest culprits right now, adding to this problem. It further strips the soil of nutrients by killing the microorganisms within it and compromising delicate ecosystems. This product is a highly toxic and carcinogenic substance, and studies have been proven of its effects. The worst cancer, liver disease, microbiome or gut disruption, autoimmune problems, anxiety, depression, and reproductive concerns and birth defects, so much that many countries are phasing out and have already banned the pesticide. I have a vision that City of Swan could lead by example and be noticed and commended for their efforts. If we strive for more eco and sustainable solutions by working together, such as Kekex, Razor and steam or heat spraying, to name a few. There are also local producers that can be tested. I have witnessed many council employees spraying and noticed they aren't actually spraying effectively. In some instances, it's been squirted directly on the ground instead of spraying. You have 30
seconds left, thank you.
To cover the leaves, and to top it off, these employees were not wearing protective clothing, hence negligence. I'm also aware that care is needed in mixing the chemical, which is premium strength, due to China buying out all the weaker grades, which adds to the risk. Why take these huge risks? The Swan Valley is a tourist attraction and has quality produce, and the council should be supporting the locals to farm in a sustainable and eco-friendly means to be cherished and preserved for future generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Your timing was impeccable and I thank you for your attendance. The next public statement is by Mr John Lee in relation to item 4.5. Mr Lee, thank you. Once you start, you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay. Just here about the proposed use and associated development for an artificial insemination facility at Lot 46 Gaston Road in Bullsbrook. I just want to draw the council's attention to some of your own information that you provided, was that the centre needed approval by an EPA in regard to the separating distance, of which they recommend is 2,000 metres. Now in this they recommend that a scientific study based on site and industry specific should be prepared, presented and demonstrated that a lesser distance will not result in unacceptable impacts. Now, from the information that I've read that's been provided, the environmental assessment that was done by the proponent or applicant doesn't provide any results and doesn't provide any specific details of a scientific study upon the scientific method of normal procedure of hypotheses, experimentation, results, data assessment, and then finally a conclusion that could be drawn that would back up the state that the amenity of the surrounding residences within a separation distance of as less as 400 metres could be satisfactorily determined by the environmental assessment.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
So I draw the attention to the council that these should be provided if a decision is to be made by council to allow for this insemination to be allowed within 400 metres of a separated distance of residences.
Thank you very much. The next person to make a public statement is Mr Arthur Storm, and it's on item 4.6. Mr Storm. Thank you, Mr Storm. Once you start speaking, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mr Deputy Mayor, councillors and City of Swan staff. My name is Arthur Storm. I live at 2 May Street in Bellevue. My issue of concern is the ongoing problems created by the City of Swan Planning Department presenting unsuitable industrial development proposals to Council for consideration. More specifically, where the proposal is inappropriate due to the location of the proposed development being located in a predominantly residential area. Which brings me to the item 4.6 on the agenda, this evening listed as Civil Works Site Remediation. This DA 139/20 does not highlight the fact that if approved it will allow for an industrial activity and enterprise for the screening of possibly more than 50,000 tonnes of known and unknown landfill that contains materials dumped illegally on the site. The site was classified by the Department of Environment and Conservation on the 2nd of April 2009 as possibly contaminated. Investigation required. The development will have environmental impacts that affect the wider residential community of Bellevue, and yet the planners are only concerned to contact the immediate neighbours of the site. There is a nature trail, including a playground that abuts the boundary, and a school and a sports oval in close proximity. The development activities are not only a concern on the site, but will also impact residents throughout the community. The proposed application is light on detail, and it appears that the city planners have not informed relevant state environmental authorities as to the nature and scale of the proposed activities to be conducted on the site. It's possible that the location and the volume of material to be processed will require environmental investigation, if not licensing of operations, as at other locations in the City of Swan where screening is done. Please do not approve the DA 139/20 without further environmental investigation and approved guidelines provided by the appropriate environmental authorities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr Storm. The next speaker, councillors, is Mr Paul Farris on item 6.4. No, Mr Farris isn't here.
No, 4.1.
Is Mr Farris here to start with? No.
No, not here.
Then the next speaker I have is Ms Carol Lyons on item 6.5.
No, 4.5, Mr Mayor.
6.5.
That's the number. Here's the item. 4.5.
Sorry, it's item 4.5 in the agenda, councillors. It's also the Bullsbrook piggery. And Ms Lyons, you'll have 2 minutes, and I'll try and give you a 30-second warning. Thank you.
I live 600 metres away.
Sorry, if you can just wait for a moment. Councillor McCulloch's got an interest in this one, and she's leaving the chamber. Thank you. I'll start your time when you start speaking. Thank you.
I live 600 metres away. I object with many reasons. There is not enough information and knowledge received by councillors to give an informed decision, with some information as misleading and generic. This proposed piggery is very close to many receptors and the Bullsbrook Township, with receptors discriminated as isolated dwellings, while separation distances are contentious and conflicting. Future development will be severely affected, as well as economic loss and devaluation to the whole community. This piggery will affect nearby residences' amenities, meat production, tourism, real estate, and potential future businesses, while impacting on livestock and persons. Scientific technical information supplied by the applicant and experts is insufficient, site nor weather specific, including noise from fans where summer temperatures exceed 30 degrees, followed by hot nights. Stressed pigs at 115 decibels will squeal continuously. The applicant's risk assessment has not included how they will manage the increase in pests nor the dispersion of harmful pathogens through fans. Dead carcasses on site and spent bedding will cause a breeding ground for stable flies, which draw blood from livestock and humans, stop cattle from feeding and contribute to horse agitation and allergies, creating further costs for the entire community in fly control, clothing protection, vet and adjustment fees. Cattle and adjustment properties will suffer. No investigation has been conducted on previous piggery closures on this lot. This proposal will prejudice rural development in this area and affect our amenities, while not promoting the enhancement of the rural character, and could easily create a disease, virus and polluted-ridden area by allowing this piggery proposal to go ahead so close to Perth metropolitan region. Why fit a piggery into an area that is clearly not suitable?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Call for the next speaker, Ms Laurel Dudek, in relation to item 4.7. If we can recall Councillor McCulloch, please. Thank you. Hello, Ms Dudek. You'll have 2 minutes like all the other speakers, and I'll try and tell you when you have 30 seconds remaining. So when you're ready, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Regarding childcare DA, Norman and Blackburn Streets in Bellevue. Why would you approve this proposal when it does not meet majority of guidelines in Planning Bulletin for daycare centres laid out by WA Planning Commission? Why would you approve this proposal when 120-place childcare is under construction off Clayton Street in Bellevue, which will amply meet the needs of the suburb and not impact residential amenity? Why would you approve this proposal when there is strong evidence of oversupply with childcare centres in a 5-kilometre catchment from Bellevue? Why would you approve this proposal and destroy what quiet enjoyment and amenity my family and my neighbours have for a DA that does not comply with Town Planning Scheme 17 amenity clause? This is not complementary to our needs, and it will compromise residential amenity. Why would you approve this proposal when, after great cost, Council adopted Bellis in 2013 with objective to protect residential amenity from incompatible commercial and industrial developments? Why would you approve this proposal and create 300 traffic movements from before 7 a.m. to after 7 p.m, 5 days a week, plus Saturdays to 6 p.m. in my street, Blackburn, going to the extremely busy Horace Street lights that has heavy traffic, trucks coming down Greenmount Hill all day long?
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
Why would you knowingly create this extra traffic when we are already impacted with increasing non-residential traffic from the businesses on Great Eastern Highway, using Norman and Blackburn Streets to access lights? Why would you do this to us in Bellevue, councillors? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation, your public statement. Can I ask if Mr Paul Farris is here? No. Okay, the next and the last speaker is Mr John Begovic on item 5.2. Thank you, councillors. Mr Begovic, once you start, you'll have 2 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. In regards to the Walcott Avenue upgrade, thank you to Charlie Zanino for the motions, and also to Rod Henderson for seconding. To To destroy all the trees down Walcott Avenue on the pretence of widening the avenue to facilitate more traffic from the newly developed suburbs, high-density suburbs to the west of Murray, Bradham and Whiteman Edge seems the wrong way to go. West Swan and the Swan Valley should not be used as a rat run or a thoroughfare for a high-density urban environment. We have a perfectly good road network in the form of Dumpellier and the Darwin, the Perth Freeway, and they should be encouraged to use that rather than Walcott Avenue. We remember a few years ago we had bumper-to-bumper traffic from Reed Highway to Walcott Avenue in the mornings. That's dissipated now, thankfully. We don't want to go backwards to that time. We'd like to reclaim the Swan Valley back to its rural nature and urge the councillors to pass the resolution 1, 2, 3 and 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillors, that was the final public statement, which takes us to item 7, petitions. 7.1, the city's received a petition containing 393 signatures regarding the upgrade to Walcott Avenue, and it should be considered as part of the officer's report in item 5.2 on tonight's agenda. So I need a recommendation to move that way. Moved Councillor Zanino, seconded Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. Councillors, are there any other petitions to be submitted? No other petitions. That takes us to item 8, which is deputations, and all deputations were dealt with at last week's agenda forum on the 14th of October. Taking us to item 9, announcements by the presiding member, and I do have a form to read out, councillors. As you are aware, the Local Government Amendment COVID-19 Response Act 2020 was passed by Parliament in April of this year. Subsequently, the Minister for Local Government made an order under this legislation. The order specifies that local governments cannot hold electors' general meetings or electors' special meetings while the state is in a state of emergency. A declaration is in force. Historically, the City of Swan's annual electors' meeting is held in December and was planned for this December 17th on a Thursday evening. It has now been postponed in line with the state government's COVID-19 directions and in the interest of public health and safety. The City will advise of a new date following the end of the COVID-19 emergency period. I understand there may be some disappointment by this delay. However, the City is committed to ongoing accountability to our community. We will continue to engage with you on important issues, projects and listen to your concerns. You can continue to have your say through community consultation processes, contact with your individual councillors, meetings and direct correspondence with the City. The City is also progressing our 2019-2020 annual report, which will be presented to Council at the meeting of the 16th of December. This will provide a clear overview of our performance in the last financial year, and all community members and ratepayers will have the opportunity to review on our website. Councillors, further, at about 7 p.m. tonight, there are 3 confidential items which must be dealt with. So around 7 p.m. we'll be going behind closed doors to deal with those items. Question, Councillor Catalano.
I'd just like to know, once the COVID restrictions are off, will there be the annual electors meeting? Will it be held after that time?
Well, it will be held on a date unknown at this stage, but it may not be this year. Thank you. Item 10, councillors, members' questions. Councillor Congdon, your questions have been answered there. Anything arise from it? Councillor Johnson, your questions have been answered. Thank you. And you have 2 answered questions in the confidential section. 10.3, questions of which due notice has not been given. Are there any other questions from councillors? Councillor Henderson first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In view of the accident on Hadrill and Campasic over the weekend, I asked the following. Has the City of Swan written to Main Roads requesting a review of 1, the stop sign at the intersection of Hadrill and Cambersick Roads to replace the giveaway sign, and for a review of the speed limit on Cambersick Road? And 2, has a response been received from Main Roads on these matters?
Mr. Coaten, thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The answer to both of those questions is yes. The City did write to Main Roads following the council resolution. A response was received back in relation to the stop signs that there's adequate site clearance and it doesn't meet their warrants for a stop sign, and giveaway signs are the appropriate control. We have requested them to look at the installation of additional giveaway ahead warning signs, which they are considering, and they have also indicated that they are supportive of a speed reduction on Cambersick Road.
Thank you. Councillor McNamara, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Corton again. Sorry, Mr. Corton. It's with regard to the junction at Beachborough Road and Marshall Road. Due to the fact, Mr. Mayor, that the exit onto Reid Highway from Marshall Road, from Beachborough Road, is now closed, and this particular junction is supposed to be coming to an upgrade from the point of view of roundabout, I believe. When will it happen, and how? And that's basically it. When will it happen?
Mr. Coaten.
We don't have an exact time frame on it. We are trying to get it done as soon as possible. It is impacted by the Metronet as well, so we are liaising with Main Roads and PTA in relation to that upgrade, but we don't have a definite time frame, but we are trying to get it done as soon as we can.
Thank you.
And that is, you are aware, Mr. Corton, that due to that closure of the Reid Highway junction, that the traffic backing up, there's only 2 lanes at that thing, turning left, turning east, heading south on Beachborough Road, and it's causing major problems from the point of view of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that was a question, but yes. Was he aware? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Quick question, following on the questions from Mr. Baku. Can you please explain what actions were taken by staff in regards to points 3 to 6 in regards to this, in regards to the revocation motion, please?
Mr. Vanderlyn.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, so with regards to point 3 of the resolution, as indicated, we've received quotations from surveyors to progress that work. With regards to the commencement of an expression of interest, there was a report done to the executive that went to executive in July that set out the process that we propose to follow on the expression of interest. And we had further discussions which also led to a council briefing in that regard. And then after the 3rd of June resolution, there was also clarification at the meeting in July. It clarified the issue between provision 5 and 6, where there was a discrepancy about that, which clarified that the southern part of the site was to be used for public open space only, and that it didn't have to go out on an expression of interest.
Does that satisfy your question, Councillor Parry?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If actions were undertaken under the Meeting Procedures Act of 2019 under clause 9.3/1, why are we considering this motion, please?
Ms. Albrecht.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, it is allowable for Council to consider a revocation motion even where the motion has been partially implemented, as long as a statement of impact is available to the Council.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Parry? Or not worried if you're satisfied? It's been answered. Okay, councillors. Takes us to item 11, leave of absence. Are there any leave of absence being sought?
I've got none, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor... he hasn't... yes. Thank you. I thought he had left because the Mayor was here.
No.
You didn't have any leave of absence, Councillor Congerton? No, I don't. Thank you. Item 12, confirmation of the minutes. I require a resolution, councillors, for the minutes of previous meetings. The special meeting held on the 9th of September, the ordinary meeting held on the 23rd of September, and a special meeting of council held on the 13th of October 2020. Moved Councillor McCulloch. Seconded Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried. Takes us to item 13, any business left over from the previous meeting. And item 13.4, adoption of the City of Swan Cycle Network. It's on page 16 of the agenda. Councillor Congerton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The proposed motion is the Council resolved to defer item 13.4, adoption of the City of Swan Cycle Network plan until the 18th of November 2020, ordinary meeting of Council. And to record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that the Whiteman Ward councillors were to have a meeting to discuss this item before coming to Council. Due to ward meetings being cancelled since COVID-19, this did not occur. The deferral will allow the councillors to meet with the respective staff.
Thank you. I have a seconder, Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried. The next item under any business left over is on page 115. It's item 13.5, third-party advertising signage, 76 Rugby Street, Bennett Springs. I need a motion, councillors. You're moving the officer's recommendation, Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried. That takes us to part B of the agenda, councillors. So for the benefit of members observing the meeting, the Council used an en bloc method of decision making. This means that agenda items where Council supports the officer's recommendation are not debated separately. One vote is taken, so all of those items can be decided on by Council. I have the following items withdrawn for debate. Item 4.5, proposed use and associated development of artificial insemination centre at Bullsbrook. Item 4.6, site remediation Clayton Street, Bellevue. Item 4.7, proposed childcare centre Norman Street, Bellevue. Item 4.8, retrospective application for Brushwood Fence, Maxwell Road, Caversham. Item 5.2, Walcott Avenue upgrade. Item 7.1, council meeting arrangements, and 7.2, proposed council meeting dates for 2021. Are there any other items to be withdrawn, councillors? Being no other items to be withdrawn, can I receive a motion to adopt those items that haven't been withdrawn so they can be approved tonight in case we don't finish this meeting? And I'll just quickly read them out. Item 2.1, policy review social media. 2.1 again, probably 2.2, policy review procurement. Item 3.1, draft community health and wellbeing plan. Item 3.2, response to petition to conduct a heritage assessment with 14 properties. Item 4.1, consideration of submissions to the DCPs in South Bullsbrook. Item 4.2, Minister's modification to Scheme 17 and contribution for plan arrangements for the Bullsbrook town site. Item 4.3, responsible authority report for the childcare centre in Park Street, Brabham. Item 4.4, use of land for group dwelling, construct additional house on Robinson Road, Herne Hill. Item 4.9, addition to existing dwelling, Pheasant Way, Balladura. 4.10, statutory planning decisions under delegated authority. 5.1, replacement of the HVAC unit in the Avenue Midland. 6.1 List of accounts paid September 2020, 6.2 Financial Management Report August 2020, 6.3 Budget Adjustments 1920/2020 to October 2020, 6.4 Change in the basis of valuation. Councillors, there are also 4 items in the confidential folder that have not been withdrawn, and I'd like to pass them in block as well tonight. If I can have a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor McCulloch, seconded Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare all those last items I read carried. That takes us to the next item, which is item 4.5, the proposed use and associated development for an artificial insemination centre, 46 Gaston Road, Bullsbrook. It's a motion by Councillor Richardson. Councillor McCulloch has declared an interest, so she is leaving the chamber. Over to you. Thank you, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Motion this evening is to defer item 4.5, the proposed use and associated development for an artificial insemination centre on lot 1780, number 46 Gaston Road, Bullsbrook, until the 18th of November 2020 ordinary meeting of Council, in order for the staff to investigate and advise on the circumstances of the cessation of a previous piggery use on the subject land, as well as the opportunity to investigate the issues pertaining to state fly and the impact of the other rural businesses.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Question, Councillor Henderson.
To Mr Russell, how long have we had this application, and could we possibly have a deemed refusal if we're not dealing with this tonight?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, it is past the expiration date for a determination, so a deferral, if the applicant so minded, could be taken as a deemed refusal and taken to the SAT.
Question, Mayor Lucas.
Question, Councillor Kiley.
The consultation for this took place, I believe, in maybe April, May of this year. Why has it taken so long and continued beyond the expiration date for it to come to Council?
Mr Russell, do you know?
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The opportunity exists for the applicant to respond to some of the issues that were raised with respect to the community submissions in relation to noise, in relation to clarity around odour management. So it's not uncommon for there to be a bit of time between the cessation of the advertising and the interrogation and resolution from a planning assessment point of view of the issues raised in the submissions, and that's the reason.
Follow-on question.
Yes.
Who has established the expiration date? In what? Through, was it the WAPC or the council, the City of Swan itself?
Mr Russell.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. It's written into law, Mr Deputy Mayor, the Planning and Development Act.
Further follow-on question.
Yes.
Why has there not been a determination then? Who is delaying the determination on this item? Why couldn't it have been made before it even came to Council?
Which determination?
Well,
clarify.
Councillor, you're in a bit of a two-way problem here, because we received submissions from members of the public. We've gone back to the proponent and said, in all these cases, and you've got a couple of others here tonight where people have raised other issues, you're then saying, leave those, you're proposing we're going to defer them. So that's what's happened here. We've gone back to the proponent. He's got some additional reports and information brought to us. He's obviously indicated that he's quite happy for it to be delayed. Now the report's before Council. If you're going to delay it further, that's the question from Councillor Henderson. The Council could obviously be, the proponent could quite obviously say now, that's the report. So that's the normal process, just as you could ask for additional information tonight, we have to go back to them. So that's the additional information, as is part of the report about the stable fly. Now that wasn't raised, I don't believe, in any of the submissions. So if that's something we have to go back to, that's what we have to do. But that's why some of these take longer than what they should do.
Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
The CEO referred to appropriate process. I believe it's the process that we need to go through as a council is to be given every opportunity to look into the reasons why it should be either approved or rejected. I just don't. We shouldn't be circumvented in this way by pressure applied to being forced into a decision. We need the opportunity to really look at the issues here.
Okay, I think I can paraphrase it is that under legislation we have had the time allowed for us to make a decision. If we defer it or if we refuse it, the applicant can appeal to the State Administrative Tribunal. So it's your decision tonight whether
I've got a question.
Hang on,
Sorry.
Councillor Prodovnik. Councillor Johnson's before you.
Oh.
So it's your decision whether you defer now or we have another recommendation or motion from Councillor Henderson. So, Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, to Mr Russell, if we are past the due date for this decision, is it already a deemed refusal?
Could be.
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, a deemed refusal is at the discretion of the applicant. An applicant can decide, if a council hasn't made a determination within the 90-day time frame or a time that the applicant has agreed to extend to enable council to make a decision, the applicant may, it's not automatically taken, it's deemed, and it's deemed by the applicant. I might add that the even if a deemed refusal was taken on the basis that the council has not made a decision, I can say to the council this evening that in common regular practice in the State Administrative Tribunal, an appeal taken on the basis that a decision has not been made by the council invariably and almost entirely in every instance results in a request for the council to reconsider the absence of a decision and make a decision. It is not possible invariably in the modern process in the SAT for the council to avoid making a conscious decision on an application when it's on appeal.
Councillor Prodovnik.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, to Phil Russell. So if we're hearing you correctly, what you're saying is tonight, if we defer it, there's a high likelihood that the applicant would wait for us to consider it before going to SAT. Is that what you're saying?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, I wouldn't venture a comment either way. I don't know the disposition of the applicant. All we're saying, and what we've got to remember, all we're saying is the opportunity in law exists for the applicant, if there's not a decision made, and as there has been at any point past the 90-day period, to take it off to SAT. Invariably, in my experience, most applicants naturally endeavour to work with local governments to get a favourable outcome, and resorting to a SAT is invariably of last recourse because it costs, as you can imagine, both time and money. So most applicants are willing to work naturally with councils to resolve issues and obtain an outcome and by way invariably of a conditional approval rather than to rush off prematurely to the SAT when in the end of the day, if they waited a little bit in a reasonable course, they may get a decision that suits them in any event.
Okay, are there any other questions, councillors? I've got a motion which has been seconded. I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favour? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, being everyone other than Councillor Henderson and myself were against. Everyone else in favour. The deferral motion is carried. Item 4.6, Civil Works Site Remediation, Lot 134, Clayton Street, Bellevue. We can recall Councillor McCulloch, thank you. It's on page 518, and before you start, Councillor Johnson, I just need to get those two other councillors back in the chambers. Thank you. Okay. I've just been advised that the Mayor has arrived, so I'll just wait and I'll do a quick 30-second handover. We're up to item 4.6 on page 19.
Civil Works Mediation. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for your patience in my being late, and thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, for standing in. Okay, so you already moved the motion, have you?
No, he hasn't yet.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to defer item 4.6, Civil Works, Site Remediation, Lot 134, number 133, Clayton Street, Bellevue, DA 139-20, until formal level advice has been received from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation and incorporated into the report. 2, request that the advice from DWER be included as an appendix in the agenda report when it is brought back to Council. 3, record the reason for the deferment is that formal level advice has not yet been provided and is pending. The staff have advised that the agenda report has failed to accurately articulate this situation.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Podovnik. Is there anyone against? There's no one against. We'll declare it carried. Takes us to item 4.7, the proposed childcare premises at lot 490-491, number 7 Norman Street, Bellevue. And that is...
Mr Mayor, Councillor Scanlon was a very late apology this evening. She texted me through a request so Councillor Johnson could move the motion on her behalf, which I agreed to. Thank you.
Mr Deputy. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might have to amend this one as I go because Councillor Scanlon gave me sent some additional reasons to the city at the very last minute. Have you got them? Point 3. Okay, all right, we've got it in there. Which might present a chance for me reading it out accurately. So, if I can ask the minute clerk, if you could please blow that up to make it a bit bigger so I can read it. Thank you. I'll read it off the screen. My motion is that Council resolve to refuse the proposed childcare premises at lots 490 and 491, number 7 Norman Street, Bellevue, for the following reasons. 1, the proposed development will cause a detrimental impact to the amenity of the surrounding area. 2, the proposed development will cause increased traffic issues for the residents of Norman and Blackburn Streets. 3, an oversupply of childcare centres will result in a diminishing of the level of service to the community. 2, record the reasons for changing the officer's recommendation as A, the development does not meet the majority of guidelines, Planning Bulletin 72/2009, guidelines daycare, I'm reading this out accurately, daycare centres for location, oversupply, traffic and negative impact on residential amenity. B, the development does not meet criteria LPS 17.4.2.7 points D and E. And D is provide for a limited range of ancillary development compatible with the form and density of residential development and complementary to the needs of local communities, but which will not compromise residential amenity. E, avoid development of land for any purpose or any manner that would detract from the viability or integrity of development in either the strategic regional centre of the commercial zones, general commercial land 10 metres away. And C, the development does not comply with the policy of Bellevue East land use study which guides orderly planning in Bellevue.
Seconder? Seconder, Councillor Scanlon. Is anyone against? Sorry, Councillor Podovnik. Send me 100 text messages today. I got it on the brain. Okay. Councillor Lucas, you're against?
I am, but I don't wish to debate it. Thank you.
Debate it. Okay. Anyone else against? Okay. In that case, I'll put it straight.
Question, if I may, about point 3 of the first part. If you go back to there.
Question is, Councillor.
I just want to know how an oversupply will diminish the level of service. If the mover could outline that.
You can't.
I don't know who can answer that one. I don't think even the staff can answer that one. Okay, so.
I'm happy to answer that in a deputation.
Well, at this point, I've got. It's no deputations. Okay, I've got.
Question.
Okay, I've only got Councillor Lucas against, and he's not prepared to debate it. So, councillors, to put that to vote. Those in favour. Councillors Catalano, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Jones, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Congdon, Councillor Parry, and myself, Councillor Lucas, and Councillor McCulloch are against. So it is carried. It takes us to 4.8, the retrospective application for brushwood fence, lot 15, number 36, Maxwell Road, Caversham. Councillor Zanino.
Before he starts, Mr Mayor, I've got a financial interest. I'll be leaving the chamber.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just hold one moment, Councillor, while Councillor Lucas leaves the room. Councillor Zanino.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I stand to move that the Council resolve to 1. Approve the brushwood fence at lot 15, number 36, Maxwell Road, Caversham. 2. Record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that the fence is not considered to adversely impact the amenity of the adjoining neighbour and serves to protect the privacy of the applicant.
Okay, second it. Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? You are against, Councillor Henderson? Wish to debate it?
Only to say that I will move the officer's recommendation if this fails.
Foreshadowed. Okay. Okay, move the motion. Those in favour? Councillor Richardson, Councillor Podolny, Councillor Johnson, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Parry, Congleton, McNamara, Jones, McCulloch and Councillor Henderson is against. Declare that carried. Now we move to item 5.2, the Walcott Avenue upgrade. And if someone could call, we call the Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Parry. And again, Councillor Zanino.
Thank you once again, Mr Mayor, councillors. I move that the Council resolve to 1. Not undertake any work on Walcott Avenue between West Swan Road and Murray Road at this time. 2. Commence the process to temporarily close Walcott Avenue to the west of Murray Road for a period of 24 months by giving public notice of the proposed temporary closure and calling for public submissions. 3. Request the CEO to present a report to a future meeting of Council to consider the option of the road closure becoming permanent. This report should be presented prior to the reopening of the temporary closure. 4. Record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is to enable Council to review the impact of the temporary closure prior to consideration of the permanent closure at a future time.
We have seconder. Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? There is. Wish to debate it, Councillor Lucas? Okay, Councillor Zanino, if you could open the debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors. The local community and especially the residents that live in the immediate locality have unanimously supported leaving Walcott Street or Walcott Avenue as it is. If we have a look at the report, page 585, the officers have presented 5 options. These options all cost substantial amounts. Option 1, there's a cost of $1.4 million. Option 2, a cost of $1.26 million. Option 3, $1.31 million. Option 4, $1.81 million. And option 5, which is the recommended option, is $320,000. As the report states, there's a substantial amount of traffic going down Walcott Avenue, and it's going to increase substantially. As you have seen, there was a petition presented to Council this evening. 393 signatures was presented to Council. Along with the report states there was 22 submissions made also. Councillors, as there has been unanimous support from the local community, and also the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance has also supported the temporary closure, and the Tourism Alliance actually would like to see all those roads closed coming through onto West Swan Road. What I am proposing is a temporary closure. It's only for 24 months. And after that time, the council can have another look at it and make a judgment whether the closure remains permanent or whether the road reopens. In the meantime, the local residents don't want any money spent on the upgrade of the road, and this proposed money that was going to be spent can be spent more wisely on other projects in the meantime. So I'll leave it at that, councillors. I ask you to support this going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. Councillor Zanino and myself met with local residents. They were very strongly of the view that they live in a rural area, and I can understand what their concerns are with a significant amount of urban traffic being poured down upon them. Now, we can resolve that. All we have to do is finish off the last little bit of road between Wilcott and Yuildene, and the traffic can flow down through there and on to Drumpilia. That fixes the problem. Sure, that would bring forward works on the Henley Brook Ave, and I have asked staff to have a look at that. But the point is about this is that Swan Valley and West Swan Road are a tourism route, and we're seeing significant amount of traffic impacting that road. We're seeing more accidents. In fact, over the weekend, we had a busy weekend. There was another accident on Park and West Swan Road. So the traffic flow is the issue, but more broadly, if you think about the long term, if this progresses, will be the widening of Wilcott Avenue. The widening of Wilcott Avenue, it might be kicked down the road right now for a little while, but ultimately it will mean that the trees along there, that beautiful country drive, will get flattened and that road will get widened to satisfy an outlet of Henley Brook Avenue. So we should fix it in the first instance, going to Yuildene as I suggested. So this is a first stage, if you like, to gauge how it would work. But importantly, the rural community are saying they don't want a rat run through their area. The more traffic we get down onto West Swan Road at that intersection, which is on a slope heading into the intersection, will ultimately mean the likelihood of further accidents, and that's what we don't need on our tourist route. So I think that the residents have got it right. They want their area to remain rural. They want to have access to their local rural road, which they've always had, and they want to ensure that the urban traffic is channeled to the appropriate areas, and that is down onto Drumpilia via Yuildene, and this would facilitate that. So I support Councillor Zanino in his motion, and I think we need to look at this and resolve this now rather than kick it down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas, against the motion?
Just a question, Mayor, if I could.
Question, Councillor Coley.
Under point 1, not undertake any work on Wilcott Avenue at this time. What could we read from that? How long should we be not doing any work on the road?
Well, at least 24 months, I would suggest, Councillor Zanino. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as Councillor Henderson has said, both myself and Councillor Henderson met on site with local residents. They're actually very happy with the condition of the road. They're saying, okay, yeah, it needs minor work done to it, but with the closure of the road, you're not going to have the traffic volumes which are going to make the road deteriorate. Therefore, the road, if it deteriorates, will deteriorate much more slower, and because it's only going to have local traffic. After 12 months or 24 months, the officers will obviously keep an eye on it and do another assessment, and if it needs work done to it, this work can be done in 12 months or 24 months rather than spending the money today up front.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, now the questions. Councillor Lucas.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to address a couple of issues brought up in debate by both Councillor Zanino and Henderson, and they're very important points. So they've met with the local residents, and pretty well, from what I gather from that, the local residents want to keep this almost as a private road and deny other residents of the City of Swan access to it. I've got an email here from the chair of the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance addressed to the Mayor, myself and councillors of the City of Swan, dated the 13th of October. It says, "Good afternoon. The Swan Valley Tourism Alliance would like to advise that we support the Planning Officer's recommendation, option number 5, in relation to the above agenda item. Schedule will be determined at the council meeting on the 21st of October 2020. Given that 2 key road projects have been completed, being Northlink and Drumpillia, earlier than originally planned in the commencement of Henley-Brook Drive, we believe it would be prudent to delay this project until further traffic modelling has been conducted and other options explored." That goes against what Councillor Zanino said, where the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance wanted this road closed. Also, Mr Begovic in his deputation tonight said yes, until those other roads, when Lord Street was under construction, became Drumpillia, there was a bank up of traffic, but it's now dissipated. And you'll remember last week Mr Purvis's imagination scenario where he wanted you to imagine a fatal crash at the corner of West Swan Road and Walcott Avenue. So if the road is going to be closed, that's where it should be closed. Getting people to go to Drumpillia, well, that's heading in the opposite direction. That's meaning they're heading west, not east, to go to West Swan Road. So having made those few points, the Walcott Road surface now is in poor condition as per our asset management structure. It needs to be fixed now. Even if the road is closed, the subsurface of the road is failing, and it's false economy not to spend any money on the road. If the city doesn't maintain and renew Walcott Avenue, as per option 5, the $320,000, it will end up costing us more money in the future to repair it. That's one of our most important roles, councillors, is keeping abreast of the asset management program, and it was due for renewal this year. Regardless of any road widening or footpaths going in, the substructure of the road is failing. The process to close Walcott Avenue would require staff to publicly advertise the proposed closure, then assess all the submissions, write a report on a matter to a future council meeting. If a closure is implemented, then there will be further works to arrange that closure. That further work will divert staff from undertaking and planning the extension of Henley-Brook Avenue, which will actually reduce the volume traffics on Walcott Road and West Swan Road. Staff should be allowed to focus on constructing Henley-Brook Avenue rather than getting delayed by investigating the proposed closure of Walcott Avenue. Everybody of us would like to have less vehicles travelling on our street. Closing Walcott Avenue will just shift the problem to other streets. The 2,500 vehicles per day that currently use Walcott Avenue will be diverted to Park Street or Harrow Road. Some will travel down Everglades Avenue, then on to Yuildene Road. In the next few years, traffic volumes will increase significantly, which will put more pressure on those roads. Keeping Walcott Avenue is necessary to provide an option for people to travel to and from Brabham and other surrounding areas.
Yeah, 1 minute, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. The city is already getting increased complaints about the intersection of West Swan Road and Park Street. I believe it's going to get worse when the new Bailey Brewing Company opens up on this corner. crash statistics show us that in the last 5 years, there were 4 reported accidents at the intersection of Walcott Road and West Swan Road, yet in the same period, there were 3 times the number, in fact more than 3 times the number, 13 crashes at the intersection of Park and West Swan Road. It makes no sense to divert more traffic onto Park Street where there's more crashes. So I'll be foreshadowing the officer's recommendation. I would strongly encourage you to do the same. Let's wait and see until Henley Brook Avenue is open. Then we can reassess it in a prudent manner, not close this road for a period of 2 years, because once it's closed, the procedure for opening it again, and there'll be a lot more angst against that. So I would encourage you, councillors, to vote against this motion and support the foreshadowed motion of adopting option 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Speaker for the motion? Further speakers against the motion? Question, Councillor Congleton.
Question to the staff, thank you, Mr Mayor, is this would have to go out to a public notice and receive public submissions back. The width and the breadth of the public submissions, I would hope would, and I want some enlightenment here, go a lot further than Walcott Avenue, because this impacts the residents of Brabham severely. So
It's got to be publicly advertised.
Yes.
Newspaper, publicly advertised.
In the West Australian?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Mr Caton, you wish to comment?
Yes, it would be publicly advertised and on our website and in the West Australian as well. And we normally also do a letter drop to the properties that we anticipate would be impacted. So in this case, it would encompass the properties in Brabham.
Thank you.
Okay. Any speakers for the motion? Any further speakers against the motion? No further speakers. Councillor Zeno, if you close the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be long. Just to address a couple of the issues that Councillor Lucas brought up. He said that he had a letter there from the chair of the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance. Let me tell you, I have a copy of that letter as well. And I spoke to John, who is the chair, and he basically indicated to me that they sent the letter supporting option 5 because they thought that that was the only option. There was no other real options. They had to choose between one of the 5. And when I indicated to him that there was another option, and that was to close it, he supported that full-heartedly, and he put it to his committee. And at the agenda forum, Mr Elaine Godot was actually supposed to come and do, because he had indicated he was going to come and do a deputation on behalf of the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance, but unfortunately at the last minute, due to a family emergency, he wasn't able to make it. But he did say that, he would do whatever he could do. Now, with the added pressure, as Councillor Lucas said, to places like Park Street in particular, that's one of the reasons why the Swan Valley Tourism Alliance supports closing all those side streets which come onto West Swan Road. They do understand that for certain reasons, some of them can't be, but the fact that the added traffic, not just from the venue itself, once the Bailey's Brewery opens up, it's going to create huge problems. And West Swan Road is a major tourism thoroughfare. It's a tourism route, and we don't want West Swan Road used as a rat run for the residential areas just so that they can get from point A to point B quicker.
Yeah,
that's one of the main reasons why Henley Brook Avenue is proposed. Henley Brook Avenue will be 4 lanes, and Drumpilia has been constructed and is there, that is also 4 lanes. Those roads are the ones that are supposed to be taking the heavy traffic, not
Thank you, Councillor
streets
Zeno. That's just
such
3
as
minutes.
Walcott Street.
Thank you,
Councillors, I ask you to support it.
Those in favour? Councillors Henderson, McNamara, Congleton, Catalano, Kiley, Zanino, Podovnik and Richardson. 1, 2, 3. How many is that? 8. Motion's carried. Thank you. Takes us now to item 7.2, and it's the proposed... No, sorry, my mistake. 7.1, which is council meeting arrangements, and a motion from Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only part that's changed is point 1, councillors, and that is resolved to commence all future council and agenda forum meetings at 5:30 p.m. The rest remains as per the officer's recommendation. And 6, which should have been in bold, is to record the reasons for the change. As meetings have been started at 5:30 for some time without impact on attendance. A meal at 5 p.m. allows adequate time before the meeting commencement. And C, this will allow staff and councillors to get home to their families half an hour earlier.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
The question.
Question, Councillor Podovnik.
Just so that I'm clear, I queried this one and I was asking if this is for the duration of forever, 5:30, or just for this year?
Well, it would carry on to the following item as well. When you go to second dates. It's for future dates.
Well, I thought the two were very similar, so I was querying it.
I believe you had an answer. Ms Albright, just want to clarify that?
Through you, Mr Mayor. We've got 2 items before Council, so if Councillor Henderson's amendment is carried by the Council, when we get to item 7.2, a similar amendment will need to be made to carry that through for that item.
I've just
Okay,
got
I thought I saw a hand up here. Councillor McNamara, did I see a seconder? Yep. Is there anyone against? Councillor Lucas, there are against.
I'm against.
I assume you wish to debate it?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. I could say that we've debated this many times before, and having assessed over the last period under the COVID regulations, 5:30 starts, it makes me of the view that the actual meeting times can commence at 5:30, as they have done in the past very effectively. The key reasoning for this is that there are obviously councillors are able to get here for 5:30 meetings, has been demonstrated, and I think the important thing is that we have staff who come here and they've got to sit for an extra half an hour. We have a responsibility to them, albeit that they've got contracts to work as and when, but I'm of the view that if we can be more efficient with our time, and if we can do our meetings a little bit more quickly and finish a half an hour earlier, then otherwise it would be good for everyone. Thank you, councillors.
Okay. Seconder? You know, okay. Councillor Rich, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Henderson. Exactly how was it that you assessed that it didn't impact certain staff? Meaning councillors, that they were able to get here or not? Did you ask other councillors?
Purely by the fact that the meetings have been starting at 5:30 and has obviously been effective.
That, just because we're here at 5:30 doesn't mean that it's effective and that it's...
Are you debating or you another question, Councillor?
It's a question that you did you actually ask staff? Did you actually ask any of the councillors how it affects them just because they're here, though?
Mayor, I didn't ask councillors other than to say that we have been starting at 5:30 and we've been able to do so effectively. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson. Okay, speaker against the motion? Anyone? Councillor Johnson, I think you were first.
Yeah, I'll go first, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this has come up several times in the past. Should we start our meetings at 5:30 or at 6 p.m? Before I got on council, there was a long campaign run by members of the community. Believe it or not, councillors, I wasn't actually involved in it. And their thinking was that for council meetings to be more effective, to enable greater public participation, council meetings needed to start later than 5:30, as 5:30 is an unusually early time, and I'll come to that later. And eventually, after this subject being brought up at special electors meetings, being brought up at annual meetings of electors, eventually, council, I think at the second attempt, eventually resolved to start meetings at 6 p.m. It was a good thing. Councillors now probably ought to give a bit of consideration now to what other councils do. So what happens at other councils in the Perth metropolitan area? So is 5:30 or 6 p.m. the best time? So let's just run through. The meeting start times for the other 4 EMRC member councils. Their start times are Belmont 7 p.m, Bayswater 6:30 p.m, Mundaring 6:30 p.m, Bassendean, very nearby to this building, 6 p.m. Councillors, other metropolitan councils, Mr Mayor, City of Stirling 7 p.m, Wanneroo 7 p.m, Fremantle 6 p.m, Kalamunda 6:30 p.m, Vincent 6 p.m, Nedland 6 p.m, Claremont 7 p.m, Cottesloe 6 p.m, Mosman Park 6 p.m. But finally, councillors, a council just like ours starts at 5:30 p.m. Can anyone tell me? No. Peppermint Grove. Now, isn't Peppermint Grove just like the City of Swan? Councillors, I think it's a bit of an anomaly. We're nothing like Peppermint Grove, councillors. It's a tiny, anomalous council. Our council here serves a far greater area. People need to come from a long way to get here. And we need to be considering here who are the stakeholders. So, sure, the staff are stakeholders, but as Councillor Anderson pointed out, they've got a contract and they're paid to be here. The community were the people who wanted this time, this 6 p.m. start time, for the simple reason it's easier for people to get here at 6 p.m. The later it is, the more it is that people are able to get here after their normal work time. And I attended a meeting recently at, where was it, Bayswater. Their meeting started at 6:30 p.m. It ran for about 3.5 hours, by the way. And I was surprised when I got there to find a very large number of families with young children there who were there to make deputations and to watch a decision about a new skateboard park. And I thought, well, we hardly ever see children in our meetings. And the reason I asked them, how did you manage to do this? They said, oh, well, 6:30 is a fairly easy time for us to get here. Councillors, it would be easier for members of the community, especially those with families, and especially those who live a long way from Midland, such as those in Bullsbrook or Ellenbrook or Ballajura. They'd find it easier to get here if they had just a little bit more time. If they got a deputation, they want to make a public statement or ask questions, it's going to be easier. Now, of course, people are retired, and I believe Mr Beku is retired. He finds it easy to get here and ask questions. But the workers, Mr Mayor, they don't find it so difficult. So I think we need to respect that long campaign to start our meetings at 6 p.m, which is, after all, still a lot earlier than most of those other councils, except, of course, for Peppermint Grove. Now, councillors, we need to be thinking also about future councillors and candidates. I've mentioned this before. A councillor is intended to be a part-time role that's done in the evenings, and the idea is that it should be accessible to councillors who have jobs. So, I'm an example. I think Councillor Prodovnik's an example. Works in my case, I work in Perth. It's easy for me to get here because I also live in Guildford. Councillor Prodovnik, I know you do sometimes work in Midland, don't you? But not always. You can speak for yourself. I know that Councillor Richardson works in Midland, and of course Councillor Parry works in South Guildford. So it's relatively easy for him to get there. I think I've covered all the councillors. Councillor Catalano works in Midland. So all the councils, I believe, who have full-time jobs I've mentioned, they all have jobs nearby. Councillors, we need to expand the scope of possible candidates and future councillors to include just about anybody who lives in the City of Swan, and that is why a later start time is necessary to make it feasible for people to get here. So, councillors, I urge you to recognise the start times of other councils, which are an indication of a realistic
Thank you,
start
Councillor.
time for a
That's your
council.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 6 p.m.
Speaker for the motion. Further speaker against the motion? Councillor Podolnik, you are first.
Sorry to interrupt. Mr Mayor, the Deputy Mayor mentioned that we need to close off debate by 7 o'clock due to confidential items.
Yep. Well, judging from what's happening, I don't think we need to have 2 more speakers to put this to the vote. So I will be taking this one speaker and then we're going to put it to the vote because
Look,
I'm sure where we stand. Thank you, Councillor Podolnik.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm really, really disappointed by this proposed time change. The City of Swan used to start its meetings at 5:30 for years. But that start time did not work for residents, and so began repeated requests for times to change to 6 p.m. That request, as Councillor Johnson said, was made during both council meetings. It was made at annual meeting of electors. I know because I actually was there. I attended a lot of those meetings. According to those deputations, 6 p.m. is a time that better suits working parents and those with family commitments. Working parents such as myself. I ask Council to stick to our current 6 p.m. start time because it is in step with working life in 2020. A 5:30 start may have worked when we were all in COVID lockdown and when most of us were working from home and have Zoom council meetings, but it doesn't work now. Our community expects us to work with them. That means they expect us to accommodate working parents, parents like myself, who often do a school run on the way home from the office before I come to a council meeting. It's a real struggle for me to get to a council meeting at 5:30. I do not work in Midland on Wednesday. I work in Victoria Park and I can't always leave work early. I'm asking Council to keep a 6 p.m. start time that makes it easier for people to be involved in our council meetings, because many people in the City of Swan will be in the same boat as me. Council took a progressive step in May 2019 to start their meetings at 6 p.m, and it was a step that put us in step with our community. This motion is a real step backwards. And tonight I ask Council to please stay in step with our community and support what they have repeatedly asked us for, a 6 p.m. start. This council is a workplace, and we're supposed to work together for the good governance of our district. If this council votes for a start time one of its own councillors would struggle to make, what does that say? What message does that send to our community? Our current 6 p.m. start time works. Please leave it as it is. Please do not support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Podolnik. Unless there's a speaker for the motion, Councillor Henderson, I'll ask you to close the debate. Thank you. Didn't you hear me before, Councillor? I said that at 7 we're closed to deal with urgent items. Have you got anything that absolutely is different from the previous speakers to add? Or an opinion? 1 point. Okay. Make it 1 point, and I'll give a concession this time. But
very quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to top off on those points that were already spoken about.
Actually, if you've got any new information,
I'm about to bring that new information.
Thank you. 1 new point.
So, as a working parent, I rely on my husband to get home from the city to look after our children so that City of Swan ratepayers aren't hit with the bill for babysitting. So, by my husband taking time out to get home to look after our children is a cost saving to the City of Swan ratepayers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Henderson, I'll ask you to close. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. I want to cover a couple of points. Other council start times, even Peppermint Grove, are totally irrelevant. And the reason is the City of Swan is a big council. It's a big area. Have a look at this lovely agenda. 600 odd pages, double-sided printed. We have a lot of work to do, and we often have very late meetings. Those late meetings result in, when they do get late, bad decision making because you're tired. So I think the points about other councils in their start time, frankly, they fade away. The other issue here is babysitting fees. I just heard one of the reasons we have a policy is for parents that come to this council can be afforded the ability to do their job without being tired, and effectively babysitting fees are dealt with so that we can get on with our job. I haven't had a single complaint, not one, about the 5:30 start that we've had in the last months during COVID. Not one complaint about the 5:30 start. And so, for that reason, I felt that it would be prudent to review the 6 o'clock experiment, and I call it that because it just simply means that we all have to work later, and the fact that councillors have family commitments which can be dealt with through our policies makes it possible for 5:30 starts. So, councillors, I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Those in favour? One, two, three, four. The motion's lost. I need a move of the officer's recommendation. Move Councillor Lucas, seconded Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? We'll declare that carried. Councillors, I now need a motion to go behind closed doors to deal with emergent confidential items. Move Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor Jones. There's no one against. We'll now go behind closed doors. And because the first item relates to CEO, I'll ask the staff to leave the chamber, and if we can turn off the live streaming, please.